In this video, we're going to talk about when God's great wrath starts. Paul said to the people, to early Christians, that we have not been destined for God's wrath. And so many people use this to make the claim that God doesn't punish, he doesn't bring judgment, he doesn't bring wrath on us. Well, then explain Ezekiel to me. Explain to me why it is that God tells Ezekiel that the people that he's speaking to, who are obstinate and not listening to what he says, and he says that he tried to cleanse them, but they would not be clean. And therefore, they will not be clean again until his wrath against them has subsided. Why does he say that? Or why does he tell Ezekiel that there is going to be a remnant that's going to be saved, and when you see their conduct and their actions, you're going to understand why it is that God has brought destruction on them. And then you're going to understand that God does nothing without cause, that you will be consoled when you see their conduct and their actions as a result of the wrath that God brings on them. Why does he say all that? Why is it that he says in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28, why does he outline all of the wrath that he's going to bring on his people? Because turns out God does bring wrath on his people. But what Paul was talking about is something that early Christians understood, which was the wrath. And the wrath is the great wrath that is going to come on those who are not going to be saved. And then we learn in Revelation and together with Daniel when that time comes. That time comes when the abomination of desolation has been set up. And we're told that in the book of Matthew, that when you see the abomination of desolation, then will be a time of great distress such as has never happened on the earth until then. And we know that from the time that the witnesses are thrown down, that they are killed by the Antichrist, when the Antichrist rises, there will be 1,290 days until the abomination of desolation is set up. Blessed is the one who reaches 1,335 days, as is written in Daniel 12, spoken to Daniel by Jesus. Okay? So that is when God's wrath starts. And what we are talking about is not God's wrath in general. We're talking about the wrath, the great tribulation, the time of great distress, the wrath that he is bringing on the wicked. That's when he rises from his dwelling. And the reason he rises, the reason he is incited is because his jealous wrath is incited when the abomination of desolation has been set up in those who have chosen the Antichrist. That is the time that Jesus says will be a time of distress, great distress, such as has not happened in the world since the beginning. And this is the time of which John says that the multitude in white robes come out of this period. During those days, blessed is the one who reaches 1,335 days, because during those days, Jesus will come. And he will gather his elect from the four corners of the earth. Now, some of you may say, no, God's great wrath begins after the resurrection. It begins with the 7 angels, with the 7 plagues. Let's read Revelation 15 then. I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign, 7 angels, and with the 7 last plagues. By the way, all of the trumpets represent judgment. And when the 7th trumpet blows, that's when these are being poured out. So how are they last if something hasn't happened prior to the 7th trumpet? So you need to understand you're still going to be here when God's great wrath is going on. It's just going to pass over you. Just like during the first Passover, if y'all stop celebrating Easter, you're going to understand the concept of Passover. During the first Passover, when God sent the destroying angel, those who had the seal of God, those who had the blood over their doorway, they were passed over. And God didn't have to pre-tribulation rapture them. Imagine that, because, he's God. He can do whatever he wants. But the Israelites were still here. The Israelites were still here, and yet in every single Egyptian household, the firstborn of every household died. The firstborn of their flock, the firstborn of their children, they all died. But nothing happened to the Israelites. They were passed over. If you have the seal of God, you too will be passed over. Provided that you're in the covenant, and you got to understand what the covenant is in order to be in the covenant, don't you guys? It would behoove you to start reading the word and understanding what it is that God requires, to start returning to God and to be moved by his spirit to follow his laws and keep his decrees. Please go do that. Go discern with God. Revelation 15 says last, because with them God's wrath is completed. It does not say because with them God's wrath is beginning. That makes no sense. Please discern this with God.